Hello and welcome to an episode of Atomic Vinyl Reviews. My name's Jacob and today we are doing another unboxing video. So again, I'm just going to film this one with my mobile phone as opposed to my normal camera setup just because I think the picture might be a little better. So hopefully let me know if that's working for you guys or if you'd rather I go back to my other setup or something different, but hopefully it won't be too wobbly, especially as I'm doing this one-handed. Actually doing the unboxing. So we should have a couple of Bandai vinyls today. So they're just in this really thin shipping bag from Japan. Very exciting. And we should have the Godzilla singular point, Godzilla Aquarius, or whatever he's called, Amphibious, or one of those weird names that one of the forms, the new forms of this Godzilla are called. I think this one is that sort of brown looking one that looks a bit like Varan. And we should also have the Bandai Movie Monster Series MechaGodzilla 2021 figure from Godzilla vs. Kong. So this is gonna be my first proper MechaGodzilla 2021 figure, because the only other one I've got is this little guy here, which is the pop vinyl version. And I don't really consider that like a super official figure because they're stylized and all that. So let's see what we got. What have we got? We got two figures here. We can get rid of the bag finally and take a better look at these things. So they're both just nicely wrapped up in bubble wrap. I'm gonna quickly slice through that. There we go. So here is our little Godzilla here, our really weird looking Godzilla, and our MechaGodzilla. I was super excited for this guy because it's gonna be a little while until I don't know if we're ever actually going to get the Playmates version of this guy here in Australia, because we got some Playmates Godzilla vs. Kong figures showing up, but we haven't gotten the MechaGodzillas yet. And it might be a long time before we do, and from what I've seen and heard, they're even kind of rare in the US. So who knows if I'm ever going to get my hands on a Playmates version. So this was the next best thing that I could get until the Monster Arts comes out. So there we go, brand new figure, nice little tag there. And then we got our other figure here. So what's this guy actually called? He's called Godzilla Amphibia. Godzilla Amphibia, and he really does kind of look like Varan, doesn't he? Really bizarre, just this, the designs from Godzilla Singular Point. I am really looking forward to actually seeing the anime myself, and actually seeing what it's like. So one little thing about these weird Godzilla designs is I think they took inspiration. Bear in mind I haven't actually watched it yet, but we're gonna get it soon on Netflix, hopefully sometime in June. It'll probably be June by the time I actually upload this video nonetheless, but whatever. It's not quite June yet when I'm filming this. It's like the day before June starts. But if we look at some of the other versions, like we got this dude here, which is the Godzilla Aquatilis. This guy looks remarkably similar to Titanosaurus, just kind of based on the fin on the end of his tail there, and the color, and just the general kind of vibe of the design. People kind of thought that this guy might be Titanosaurus. However, it is a form of this new Godzilla, a really aquatic form. And then this one appears to be the next variant where he's kind of coming up on land for the first time, and this one is kind of similar to this guy in a lot of aspects, but actually looks a lot more like Varan, as you can see by kind of the detailing on the face there and kind of the shape of the body and these sort of flaps around the sides of his body here. So I think they're kind of subliminally trying to put a bunch of obscure kaiju into this anime, even if they're not officially calling them by what they are kind of representing. So I've also seen they have a design for like a Megalon Kamakuras kind of fusion creature. So they're kind of sneaking in references of other kaiju into existing kaiju that they have in their show. That's kind of the impression that I'm getting. Let's have a look at this figure itself. I like this design. I like it a bit more than this one here. You can look at the tag. The design usually looks better how it actually looks on the tag than it does in the figure form, because it looks a little bit more detailed, a little bit more organic on the way it's drawn on the tag, as opposed to the more simplified Bandai Vinyl style version. Look at that. It's just a really weird looking thing, isn't it? Absolutely weird. Like this kind of bumpy texture they got going over the top of him, and these nice silver spines running down the middle. That's really cool. This weird bone color paint just in the middle of his tail there, and then it stops, and then there's nothing to the end of his tail. In fact, this tail piece seems to be completely unpainted. So there's a bit of shading on the bottom there, but it's almost indistinguishable. But yeah. Okay, weird design. I don't know how I feel about it, but I do like the face on this thing, especially if you look on the tag there. I think that looks pretty cool. So I do like that. Yeah, I can't wait to see this guy in the anime. I don't really know much of what to say about it until I actually do. There we go. We got our two first forms of Godzilla. Then there's like a weird blue one, which I've just ordered the other day. And then we get the grown version, which is this guy here, which is like Godzilla Ultima or something like that, if I am not mistaken. Yes, Godzilla Ultima, which is the presumably full-grown version from this anime. So they've definitely taken a lot of references from Shin Godzilla with like Kamada-kun, which if you're not familiar, there's little Kamada-kun in both the X Plus and Bandai Vinyl form of Big Shin Godzilla. Finally, we can get to the figure that I was probably most excited for out of these two, and that is MechaGodzilla. Because, like I said, I have not gotten a figure of this guy up until now, aside from, again, the pop vinyl, which isn't exactly the best representation of anything, to be honest, as they are very, very stylized. Even though I do like them. I like pop vinyls, but Bandai vinyls are kind of where it's at when it comes to Godzilla figures, at least in this price range. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm having a hard time finding Bandai vinyls for a decent price these days. I'm really apprehensive about buying them from places like HobbyLink Japan and AmiAmi and those places, because since the whole coronavirus thing happened, postage has been a real mess from those sites to Australia, so I've been really apprehensive about that. So I've been just buying off eBay, and they go for really high prices there, and it's really messing with me. Like, I love Bandai vinyls, but I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of getting frustrated by just how much they're costing these days. Maybe that's just me, I don't know. But I went all out, I bought this guy, and I'm liking the detailing on this thing. I am. I'm still on the fence about the design in general. Like, I kind of like that it's doing its own thing, but I also kind of feel a bit iffy about just how sort of Transformer-ish it looks, and the proportions are really kind of weird to me. But as far as just like the figure goes, I think it's beautifully done detail-wise. I'm sorry if there's some noise in the background. Somebody sounds like they're revving an engine out on the street, so I hope that's not too big an issue. But detail-wise, this thing looks real cool, especially for a Bandai vinyl. Sometimes Bandai vinyls can be really iffy on their detail work, but for whatever reason, this one seems to have gone all out with just all the rivets, all the little mechanical details in there. And they even have the little red paints like painted where it's meant to be on the tips of these spines, as opposed to just having like red slathered all over them like the Playmates figures seem to, at least the smaller variants. Got the little teeny tiny red eyes. His face looks really weird. His eyes are really small and really far apart and just look kind of weirdly proportioned to his face. But that's really iconic for this design. He also has a very short neck. In proportion with his shoulders and his head, his neck seems really, I don't know. It's just something about the proportions of this guy I'm not overly fond of. There's not really any more paint on him aside from just a silver. Now, I have seen that some people have had a bit of paint wear on theirs, and it turns out this guy's actually cast in like a white plastic, which isn't the best, because if you do get any wear, it will be quite obvious. So I wish they would have cast this in a grey or metallic plastic and then painted it silver, rather than actually having a white thing and then painting it silver. But nonetheless, for what it is, the paintwork is fairly good, I guess. There's not really much more you could have done with this. Maybe a wash of black to help bring out some of the details on this thing and added a bit more red here and there. But as far as Bandai Vinyls goes, this isn't bad because they are kind of notorious for skimping out on paint in the first place. So for a figure like this, that kind of still works. Let's see. There we got the little legal information, Legendary Toho Bandai made in China. This foot has nothing under it. Minimal details as well. This is really cool. I like the chest details on this thing and all these pistons and things going to his legs there. Real nice. Let's take a look at the tag. They got a cool shot of the MechaGodzilla from the back. You can see his proportions are so weird. His arms are so thick and big, and his waist is so skinny. Just a really weird looking design. I don't know, guys. What do you think of this design? Like, I know some people love it, some people hate it. I'm just on the fence. Like, I don't even know how I feel about it. I'll let you guys know in the future. Perhaps by the time I get the Monster Arts figure, I'll actually have a solid idea, because sometimes I look at it and go, yeah, I kind of like that. Like, I actually kind of love it. And sometimes I look at it and I go, I hate it. I don't, I keep flipping. I like that they've got the spines nice and individually sculpted up here, because they are, for a Bandai vinyl, they're fairly small components or parts, and they are very nicely done. It all looks proportioned really accurately to how he looked in the film, and what I do really like is they actually got kind of a stance going for him where he's not completely neutral, where one leg is actually raised higher than the other. You can tell just by the height of the knee here that he actually is meant to stand like this, so it's not neutral, that one leg is kind of in a slightly different pose to the other, which is a little different from what we're used to with Bandai vinyls. Usually they are very uniform. Oh, that's cool. His arms have a bit of articulation. That's cool. I don't really consider Bandai vinyls articulated figures. They're more just little vinyl statues which just happen to have joints where the pieces go together, and sometimes you can move them, sometimes you can't. But, you know, for those who care, he does articulate. Both his legs do as well, although they do have to be in a specific stance to balance with his tail in like a tripod fashion like this, just to stand properly. Now, the one thing that most people have complained about with this figure is the hands. This version of MechaGodzilla has these weird sort of gecko-like hands with these four sort of grappling fingers, and in order to portray that, now hopefully my camera will focus on it, it's kind of got it, they've kind of got the fingers in this weird position where they're like, instead of being out like this, they're like curled in to the palm of his hand, just so they can kind of have those really finicky details in there. And it's a weird choice. I do agree that it does look a little odd. However, honestly doesn't bother me too much, because, you know, from a distance he still looks technical, he looks like a machine. You don't really make out the details of the hands too much, but it is a weird little choice that they did. Nonetheless, really digging the details on this thing. Like the kind of gunmetal gray silver they chose for him, it is nice and industrial looking, looks really menacing, and he does look really robotic, and great sculpt on this thing. It really does capture what he looked like in the film. Before we close off, I'm just going to quickly compare him to a couple of figures you might have in your collection, or you might be curious of what he scales like with them. First, got some Playmates figures. Got the Playmates Kong here. Do I have a Playmates Godzilla on hand? Yes, I do. Sorry, Kong. I guess you do bow to somebody. No, I don't know. So here are the Playmates figures. We got Playmates Godzilla, just the regular small-scale ones, and the Playmates Kong. And you know what? Oh my god. Kong, what have you been drinking? I can barely stand. You know what? Not a bad size comparison. From what I recall, this MechaGodzilla was taller than Godzilla. Now, I don't know whether that's the actual build of the character was so big, or whether Godzilla was sort of crouching down throughout the film. But this does look kind of accurate to me. Now, considering these are on average like 6-inch scale figures, they're about 15-16 centimeters tall. these Bandai vinyls and these Playmates ones, it's no surprise they scale up pretty well. And what else should scale up pretty well is Monster Arts and NECA figures. So we got our NECA Godzilla King of the Monsters figure. So he's basically the same design as the one from Godzilla vs. Kong. And again, they scale pretty good, although this Godzilla can't really look up much further than this, so it's a little weird with them next to each other, and Godzilla's just kind of looking down at this guy's chest, and MechaGodzilla would be like, "Hey, my eyes are up here." All men are the same. So maybe not the best with these two figures, but they do scale pretty closely to what I recall they were like in the film, because obviously this NECA figure is about the same size as that Playmates one, if not a little bigger, which might be a bit more accurate. And finally, we can bring in the Monster Arts version of Godzilla. This is the King of the Monsters one, so the 2019 version, not the one with the cool new hands and the blue paint that we're gonna get for the 2020 version, which I am actually picking up, even though it's kind of redundant because it's the same sculpt aside from the hands. But still, those hands, they look freaking cool. These guys look great together as well, and you can actually get Godzilla to look up so they can kind of have some eye contact, so that looks really cool. And you can have them as a really cool display as well. Very nice. Very nice. And finally, since he is the only other MechaGodzilla that I have from this film, here is the pop vinyl version. You can see how they scale. All in all, this guy's actually kind of big for a Bandai vinyl. I might as well just bring in some random Bandai vinyl. Yeah, this guy's kind of a small Bandai vinyl, but he's fairly typically sized. So here's the 1954 Godzilla Movie Monster Series Bandai vinyl. And as you can see, this guy is a really big figure compared to him. Or at least a little bit bigger, but he's quite chunky. So you do kind of get your money's worth in terms of the size of this guy compared to your typical Bandai vinyl. So that's real cool. There we go. There's my unboxing and sort of initial review of Bandai Movie Monster Series MechaGodzilla 2021 figure. I think this is really cool. Both of these are really cool figures. In particular, I am really digging this MechaGodzilla. If and only if it's just the fact that he's the only one I have of this kaiju in my collection, but I will say that the detail work on the sculpt is really cool on this thing. Even though the paint is minimal, it is effective. And I have mixed feelings on the actual design itself. But as far as the figure goes, I really dig it. So yeah, that's it for my video. I hope you liked it. And if you did, be sure to stay tuned for my future videos. So I hope to see you there. But until then, may all your vinyl be irradiated vinyl. Over and out.